Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm actually going to spend some time talking about PvE instead of my normal PvP. I think for a lot of folks, and certainly for myself, PvE is what initially brought us to these Souls games. I know for me, I played through Souls 1 and 2 and Bloodborne and did very little of PvP. It was really only when Dark Souls 3 came out that I started playing the PvP. And so the PvE has always kind of been close to my heart. And while I've spent most of my time lately talking about the PvP, today I want to talk about some level design and gameplay elements that I think are really part of what makes From special. I think a lot of us, when we talk about PvE and what makes these games special, it's hard for us to put our finger on what exactly it is, but I like to talk about one of these things today. Here we are in the Corvian settlement. So far we've seen some Corvians. They're sickly, they're dying. There's clearly something wrong with these Corvians, but we're about to come across a Corvian who's quite powerful indeed, and this is the Corvian Knight. And I'd like to draw attention to the way in which he is introduced to us. He's introduced to us from afar. He drops down. He is not immediately aggroed. He has to get quite a bit closer before he'll typically aggro on us. Here I'm throwing lightning urns at him to bring him in. But the whole idea here is you're encountering him in a very controlled situation. There's no other enemies around. You can turn around and run back. You can buff, you can heal. You can do all kinds of different things to prepare for this moment here. I was lucky enough after farming for hours yesterday for sharp gems and getting none to get one completely by accident. But that encounter introduces us to the Corvian Knight, and From Software games are obviously not very well known for their hand-holding, but here they're aware that the enemies are so powerful that they have to introduce this Corvian Knight to us in an isolated situation without the threat of additional enemies. So we'll proceed further into the level. We'll see more Corvians here. These are actually moving around, but there still seems to be something wrong with them. You can attack these guys here, and they don't really attack in response. You can easily backstab them. And as we move further up, we're about to be introduced to the second Corvian Knight type. And this second Corvian Knight obviously uses the Crow Quills. And similarly to the first Corvian Knight, this one is introduced to us from afar. We can see him attacking the other Corvians, and we see how much damage he's doing. And this is From's way of telling us to get ready, that we're about to deal with a very powerful enemy. He moves very quickly, he attacks very quickly. His attacks do an incredible amount of damage, and they're thrusts, so they get counter damage on them as well. I suspect most players fighting this enemy for the first time died. I know I certainly did. And even now, though I may have fought him probably dozens of times, he still kills me on an occasion. It's very difficult to find a spot where you can get in and safely attack without getting counter hit, and his Crow Quills, if all of them connect, can easily take off half of your health. Really the only way to kill him successfully that I've found is to just stun lock him, but of course you have to be very mindful of your stamina. So now we've seen both Corvian Knight types, and we'll move further into the level. Again, just to emphasize that when these Corvian Knights have been introduced to us, it's been in very controlled sort of circumstances. We've gotten a good look at both. We've probably died to both. We have a fair sense of its movesets, but perhaps most importantly, we know how deadly they are. They're very deadly. So we're about to encounter the third Corvian Knight of the level. A type we've already encountered, I would say probably the less difficult of the two. In what is a classic FromSoft riff here, we've got a goodie here in the form of a Titanite lizard, but if we don't pay enough attention to our surroundings, we miss the fact that there's a Corvian Knight hanging directly above. And I make it actually look a little bit easy because I know a charge attack will actually put him into a repostable state, but he is actually quite a bit more difficult than this appears. And this actually brings us to the part of the level that I really wanted to talk about. And I think this church here is really represents what makes FromSoft level design so amazing. Our eye is naturally drawn to this kind of attic entrance. And if we just look here and don't pay too much attention, we see some goodies down there. And what makes this so awesome is the more information we gain, the better the decision we can make. So if we take the time to come and look in through some of these other windows, we get additional information. Oh, there's a Corvian Knight down there. We know how dangerous those are. So we could choose to jump in right now, but we're going to go ahead and look around and get a little bit of additional information. We're going to look in through the other windows. And now we see there's a second Corvian Knight, and now we realize how dangerous this area is. We know there's at least 2 Corvians. We also know that From loves to hide enemies where you can't see them until it's too late, where you've already committed to a particular area. So we could choose to drop down on the rafter below us. We could choose to drop down on the floor. We could choose to jump off the ledge here, but then we don't know if we can get back up. We don't know if we'll be able to get into this area. Is there something important in there? We don't know. But if we continue looking around even just a little bit longer, we'll find that we can make the best decision of all, and that is to go down the ladder. If we go down the ladder and we come around the corner, not only do we avoid having to jump into this room full of Corvian Knights, but there's a door here. We can open the door, and using the door, we can pull the enemies one at a time, and then in a much safer fashion be able to enter the room. It's still a Souls game, so it's only safer, not safe. Even one-on-one, as we've seen, these enemies are more than capable of killing us. So my preferred approach generally is to pull out a bow, and it's hard for me to hit this first knight directly. I usually have to knock a few of the pews out of the way first, but I'm able to draw him out by himself and fight him in this open area. There's a helpful set of tombstones in a tree here in the middle that we can use to shield ourselves from his attacks. And it's funny because this actually reminds me a bit of the Father Gascoigne fight. It's similar terrain, and we're able to use the environment in a similar way to help protect us. What's funny in the Father Gascoigne fight is you spend the entire fight learning of the safety of these tombstones, only to have Father Gascoigne transfer and completely change the terrain and the way you have to fight. You suddenly find that those tombstones are no longer really protecting you. But back to Dark Souls 3, so we kill the first Corvian, and now we're going to come slowly in here, because obviously we know there's at least 2 Corvian Knights that were in here, but there may be others lurking about. So we see him drop down from the rafters. Now I happen to know that there's only 2 in here, so I can safely proceed in and attack him. Now I say safely, but again, these enemies are so dangerous that even though I fought them all so many times, I start panic rolling. He's doing a fair bit of damage to me. He comes very close to killing me. He almost bleeds me out. And fortunately, I'm able to kill him before he does that. So now that we've killed both of the Corvian Knights, we can see what this room has to offer. And the first thing is the Way of White Corona, which is actually a pretty lackluster miracle. I think the general community consensus is that it's pretty weak and probably not worth using. But all in all, miracles are generally considered items of great value. And so the fact that From Software would put it here indicates that they know the trade-off the player is making, that by coming here they've chosen to take the risk to get something of value. And you can bypass this area completely if you choose. Well guys, I hope you found that interesting. I love thinking about FromSoft level design. Thanks so much for stopping by.